It was past midnight when I boarded the train. The usual hum of the city had faded, and the streets lay blanketed in a cold silence. The night was darker than usual, like the world itself had fallen asleep, leaving only me and this train to break the stillness. I was tired, exhausted, really having just finished a long shift at the office. The kind of workday that stretches on for hours, sucking you dry until you don't even remember what day it is anymore. The train car was nearly empty when I climbed aboard, save for a few scattered passengers slumped in their seats, lost to the world. I found a seat near the back, close to the window, and slumped into it, closing my eyes for just a moment. The rhythmic clacking of the train on the tracks was like a lullaby, and I let it soothe me, fighting the pull of sleep. The train jolted to a stop, snapping me out of my daze. I rubbed my eyes and glanced around. We weren't at a station, there was nothing here but a dark stretch of empty tracks, just a void outside the window. I glanced at the clock, 12:03 a.m. We should have moved on by now. But no, the train sat idle. I shifted uneasily in my seat, my eyes darting to the few people on board. They hadn't moved, their faces drawn in the dull light. Their eyes were half closed, like they were barely awake. Everything about them seemed wrong, like a reflection that didn't quite align with the real world. A woman in the corner had her hands folded tightly in her lap, staring straight ahead, her lips parted in an unsettling, rigid grin. I shook my head, trying to shake off the fatigue. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. After all, I'd been awake for nearly 20 hours. But then came a sound. A soft tapping, like a fingernail on glass. I turned toward the window, but there was nothing outside but darkness. I held my breath, straining to hear it again, but it was gone. My heart beat louder in my chest as I glanced back at the other passengers. They hadn't moved. A sudden rush of cold air made me shiver, and I pulled my jacket tighter. The lights flickered overhead. I stared at them, waiting for them to stabilize. They didn't. Instead, the hum of the overhead lights seemed to stutter in time with the thumping in my chest. Another noise, a soft, high-pitched sound, like someone whispering just at the edge of my hearing. I couldn't make out the words, but it sent a shiver down my spine. I turned to look, trying to see the source of the sound, but the car was still empty save for the strange woman in the corner. She was looking at me now. Her grin had widened. Her eyes, though, they didn't reflect the light, they were completely black. Not the pupils, but the whole eyes. As if there were no life behind them. I quickly turned away, trying to breathe steadily, but I could feel my heart rate speeding up, my chest tightening. My fingers wrapped around the armrests as I tried to steady myself. I had to get off this train. I had to. I stood up abruptly, and the train lurched forward, making me stumble. It was so sudden, so violent, I nearly lost my balance. I glanced out the window again, nothing but darkness. No stations, no lights. Just endless blackness. The tapping sound returned, louder now. I looked around, searching for the source. My eyes landed on the ceiling above me. The metal had started to warp, slowly, as though something was pushing against it from above. It groaned under the strain. Something is wrong. I turned toward the front of the car, heading for the door to the next section, but as I passed the woman in the corner, she stopped grinning. Her mouth opened wide, too wide, and her lips split at the seams, stretching impossibly far, revealing rows of jagged, broken teeth. She leaned toward me, her voice a rasping whisper in my ear. "You can't leave." I froze. My legs felt like stone. My throat went dry, and for a moment, I couldn't move. She was too close. Her breath smelled like something rotten. Her eyes, those black, endless pits, stared into mine, and for the first time, I realized I couldn't look away. I couldn't break free from her gaze. The train lurched again, harder this time, jerking me forward and breaking the connection. I stumbled backward, my hands pressing against the nearest seat. And then, thud. The car jolted again, but this time, it wasn't from the motion of the train. It came from the ceiling. I looked up just in time to see the shadow darting across the lights overhead, moving far too quickly for anything human. The lights flickered violently, and I could hear the scraping sound of something dragging itself across the metal above. My heart was racing now, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I had to leave. I had to get off. I bolted for the door to the next car, but it wouldn't open. I pulled on the handle with all my strength, but the door stayed shut. I tugged again, panicking now, when I heard a deep, guttural growl from somewhere in the darkened hallway. The sound made my skin crawl, like something was stalking me, waiting to strike. I turned around, and the woman was gone. But in her place stood a shape tall, thin, cloaked in shadow. It wasn't human. It couldn't be. Its body twisted unnaturally, like it was made of darkness itself. Its eyes gleamed white, empty like the void. It moved toward me, slow and deliberate, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. No! I stumbled backward, my hands scrambling for anything to hold onto, but the world around me seemed to close in. The train was no longer moving, no longer on tracks, it was drifting, floating through an endless, oppressive darkness. I was trapped. I reached for my phone, desperate to call for help, but it was gone. No signal. No connection to the world outside. It was just me, this thing, and the dark train that would never stop. The shadow stopped in front of me, and for the first time, I heard its voice. It wasn't a whisper, it was loud, almost deafening. You never left. You were always here. The lights went out. And the train continued to move through the endless night, leaving me with nothing but the weight of the shadows pressing down on my chest. I was never going home.